Why does game script matter in fantasy football? Imagine you are a coach, and you have to decide how to play your game based on the score. This is what game script is all about in the world of fantasy football. Game script refers to the expected flow and scoring margin of a National Football League game. It directly impacts how teams use their players and how those players perform in fantasy football. Understanding game script helps fantasy managers predict which players will have more chances to score fantasy points. This is based on whether their team is leading, trailing, or in a close contest. When a team has a positive game script, meaning it is leading for most of the game, it usually focuses on its running game. This helps control the clock and maintain the lead. As a result, running backs often see an increase in carries and goal line opportunities. On the flip side, if a team is trailing, the game script becomes negative. In this case, teams tend to pass more often to catch up. This boosts the fantasy value of quarterbacks and wide receivers on the trailing team. They accumulate more passing yards and receptions, especially during what is known as garbage time. This is when defenses may relax, allowing for easier scoring opportunities. In games that are close or neutral, there is often a balanced mix of running and passing plays. This makes it harder to predict which players will dominate fantasy scoring. For fantasy football managers making weekly lineup decisions, factoring in game script is essential. It helps determine which players to start or sit by anticipating whether a player's team will run the ball heavily or pass frequently. For example, starting a running back on a team expected to lead comfortably might be more advantageous than starting a wide receiver on the same team. Conversely, if a player's team is likely to trail, wide receivers and quarterbacks become more appealing fantasy options. In daily fantasy sports, game script is even more important. It guides lineup construction and player selection for single-game slates or contests. Knowing the likely game flow allows daily fantasy sports players to choose the best captain or most valuable player picks and optimize their lineups for maximum scoring potential. Game script matters in fantasy football because it predicts how a National Football League game will unfold. This influences player usage patterns and fantasy point production. Considering game script improves weekly lineup decisions and daily fantasy sports strategies by aligning player selections with the expected game flow.